Why debt makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. Right now, two people are sitting in debt. One is a billionaire, one is a nurse working doubles to cover a $4,000 balance. The billionaire owes far more than she does, and every single day his debt is quietly making him richer, while hers is quietly making her poorer. Same tool, opposite direction. That's the part nobody explains. It's the same spiral. It just turns the other way depending on who you are. You've been told debt is bad. You've been told the wealthy avoid it. Both are wrong, and the gap between those two lies is exactly where generational wealth is built. Americans now owe a record $18.8 trillion. The average household carries around $105,000 in debt. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The richest families in the country are carrying far more than that on purpose. They are not trying to escape debt. They are trying to hold as much of it as they possibly can. Why? Because at the top, debt is not a burden, it's an engine. Let me make this concrete. When a billionaire wants cash, they usually don't sell their stock. Selling triggers a tax. Instead, they walk into a bank, pledge their shares as collateral, and borrow against them. The stock stays, it keeps growing, and they spend the borrowed money tax-free. This has a name. Wall Street calls it buy, borrow, die. You buy assets, you borrow against them instead of selling, and you never pay the tax. It is completely legal, and it is the quiet backbone of how the ultra-wealthy actually live. They borrow at a few percent while their assets climb at 8 or 10. They keep the spread. They get paid to use the bank's money. Now watch what the same tool does at the bottom. The nurse with the $4,000 balance isn't borrowing to buy an asset. She's borrowing to survive a month. And she's not paying a few percent. The average credit card in America now charges over 22%. Many charge 25 or more. If she slips to a payday lender, the average annual rate is 391%. In some states, over 600. Same instrument, radically different price. And that gap doesn't just sit there, it compounds. Here's the mechanism most people never see. When you're wealthy, your debt is denominated in dollars. When you're poor, your debt is denominated in stress. A billionaire does not lie awake at 3 in the morning over a mortgage. The nurse lies awake over a bill she can't clear. One person's debt is a spreadsheet. The other person's debt is their nervous system. Then there's collateral. When the rich borrow, they borrow against things that are going up. Stock, real estate, assets that earn income while the loan just sits there. The debt is close to self-paying. When the poor borrow, they borrow against nothing or against their own future paychecks. A payday loan is a bet against next month's labor. The collateral itself is fragile, and everyone lending knows it. Now here's the part that should make you angry. Debt, for the wealthy, is a tax shield. Borrow against investments, and the interest is often deductible. For someone in the top bracket, a 5% loan can cost closer to 3% after the deduction. The government effectively chips in. For the nurse, a 24% card is exactly 24%. No deduction, no help. She pays full price on money she only borrowed because she was already short. Read that again. The person with the most gets a discount on borrowing. The person with the least pays sticker price. The system runs backward on purpose, and it gets quieter and worse. Banks lend most easily to people who don't need the money. If you're wealthy and want $500,000, you call your banker and get terms the same afternoon. If you're broke and need $500, you're at a storefront paying triple-digit rates. The lending industry is not confused about who's struggling. It has priced the struggle in. It expects a share of borrowers to default, it has budgeted for it, and it has made the whole thing profitable anyway. There's one more move the wealthy have that almost nobody at the bottom does. Velocity. The rich don't just hold debt, they cycle it. They borrow short and invest long. They refinance the moment rates drop, swapping an old loan for a cheaper one and pocketing the difference. Their debt is alive, and it keeps getting cheaper because the richer they get, the better the terms they're offered. The poor can't refinance a payday loan. Their debt is frozen. It just sits there compounding while they live paycheck to paycheck. One person's debt keeps improving, the other person's debt keeps eating. So you get two completely different machines wearing the same word. The wealthy use leverage to multiply what they already have. Borrow $1 million at 4%, buy property returning 8%, and you pocket $40,000 a year on money that was never yours. Do it across 10 properties and you've built a factory that prints money while you sleep. The poor use credit to fill a hole. Carry $20,000 on cards at 20% and you're bleeding $4,000 a year just to stand still. Now stretch both out over 30 years. That $20,000 in card debt, barely serviced, can cost close to $100,000 in interest alone. That $1 million borrowed for property, even after taxes and repairs, has likely multiplied several times over. One person's debt built $2 million in wealth. The other person's debt drained $100,000 in cash. Same mechanism, opposite direction. It's the same spiral, it just turned the other way. And that is why it's called generational. It doesn't stop with you. The wealth compounds down to the next generation. So does the whole. But I want to be honest with you, because the easy version of this story is a lie too. The easy version says the poor are just making bad choices. Sometimes they're not. A $3,000 loan at 25% to keep a job that pays $50,000 a year is mathematically smart, even at $750 a year in interest. The decision is right. The problem isn't the decision. The problem is that the choice even exists. The wealthy almost never face it. Their car breaks, they write a check. Their kid gets sick, they pay cash. They only borrow when it helps them. The poor borrow when there's no other door. So what do you actually do with this? First, understand the framing you've been handed is wrong. Get out of debt is fine advice for a 25% card. It's terrible advice as a life philosophy because it teaches you that debt itself is the enemy. It isn't. Your access to cheap debt is the thing you're missing. Second, climb toward the other side of the spiral. Kill the high-interest debt that's bleeding you, because nothing you invest will reliably beat 24%. Then, slowly, start using debt the way the wealthy do. A low mortgage on an appreciating home, borrowing at a low rate to buy something that returns more. The rules are knowable. Borrow cheap. Deploy into something that earns more than it costs. Keep the spread. Repeat. The catch is you can only run that machine once you have collateral, stable income, and a cushion, which is exactly what the people giving the advice already had. So the game isn't to hate debt. The game is to fight your way to the version of it that finally works for you instead of against you. Because the spiral was never going to stop turning. The only question that was ever worth asking is which direction it turns for you.